Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Think Duality. Um, I'm having a Slurpee, a slush. Um, yeah, pretty unconventional of me to have one of these while we're filming, but I couldn't help myself. These are damn good. Lots to talk about. Lots to talk about. A lot happened over the weekend while I get like the slush all over me. Um, so let's get right to it. Pretty interesting stuff going on. So yesterday, and I can't talk now because now my mouth is all frozen. I'm starting to get a brain freeze too. Yesterday, Russian officials met with a senior Iranian envoy, along with Hamas. Now, Russia praised both Hamas and the Iranian envoy for taking an active role in the war and released several pictures of their meeting between the Russian officials, Hamas, and the Iranian deputy foreign minister, as a sign to the world that this meeting had not only taken place, but felt that some good things came out of it. Now, according to Russian and Iranian media, the talks were aimed at finding a peaceful resolution to the conflict that has obviously engulfed the region. Now, during the meeting with Hamas representatives, Musa Abu Marzouk, and Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Ali Bagheri Khani, they emphasized the need for a ceasefire and lifting the blockade of the Gaza Strip and providing more humanitarian assistance. Now, they also discussed the release of hostages in Gaza, along with the evacuation of foreigners. Abu Marzouk told Russia State RIA Novosti news agency on Friday that he and Russian diplomats discussed issues related to the Palestinian problem and how we can jointly determine a future for the region and the entire humankind that would differ from the one that the United States tries to paint. So this is interesting. Abu Marzouk further added that Russia's invitation for Hamas to visit was a message to the entire world that Russia actually considers Hamas not a terrorist organization, but a liberation movement that defends the rights of its people and wages a war for justice. Now, it's pretty heavy. I'm not saying this. I mean, I'm saying it, but these aren't my words. These are the things that occurred during their meeting, and now, Iran state-run IRNA news agency said that Abu Marzouk told Ali Bagheri Khani, the deputy foreign minister for Iran, that he appreciated Iran's support for the Palestinian people. Now, the talks highlighted Russia's efforts to obviously insert itself as a mediator, even though they are embroiled in their own conflict with Ukraine since February. The Russian president said that Moscow would act as a mediator because of its friendly ties with both Israel and Palestine. And the Russians recently tried to submit a resolution to the UN Security Council condemning violence against civilians, but it was later rejected by some in the UN because they felt that there was no mention of the acts that Hamas had incited during their incursion on October 7th. Now, the Israeli foreign minister slammed Russia's decision to invite Hamas representatives to Moscow as an act of support of terrorism and called the delegation to be immediately expelled from Russia. A Kremlin spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, responded Friday by saying that Moscow believes it is necessary to maintain contacts with all parties. Now, it's not clear if representatives from Russia and Iran and Hamas all met together on Thursday, but they definitely took pictures for the world to see. Now, these recent moves further complicates the relationship between Russia and Israel because Russia and Israel have had a complicated relationship and history. Now, over the years, Moscow steadily expanded its trade and strengthened security ties with with the state of Israel. However, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine has led to relations between Moscow and Israel to sour as of late. Now, Israel has voiced support for Kyiv, but fell short of being able to supply them with any much needed weapons, while on the flip side, many other Israelis are angered by Putin's claim that the Ukraine's president, who happens to be Jewish, Volodymyr Zelensky, is an actual neo-Nazi. Now, this is what Putin is claiming, and obviously it's angering a lot of Jews in Israel. So Putin's war in Ukraine has also on now as the relations the relations between Russia and Israel are starting to go downhill. During this conflict between Russia and Ukraine, they're starting to see an upside in and strengthening of the relationship between Iran. And Iran has actually provided Moscow with hundreds of Shahed exploding drones that obviously we've seen in the pictures and in the videos that the Russian military has used against Ukraine's energy facilities and infrastructure. Iran has also reportedly shared its drone technology with Russia, which has subsequently led to building a facility to produce them. Now, in return, Moscow is expected to offer Iran advanced fighter jets and other modern weapons as well. Now, Hamas's recent visit and its willingness to strengthen ties with Iran could potentially reflect Moscow's views as it poises itself to be an influencer in the region. This meeting has obviously led to a wave of condemnation by many Western-leaning countries. I already mentioned that Israel's not happy with it. Israel has called it an obscene step that gives support to terrorism, legitimizes the atrocities of Hamas and terrorists. Some are going further and have asked whether it shows Russia is potentially forming an axis of terror with Hamas mediated by Iran, which has already, of course, supplies Moscow with drones for its war that we already reiterated. Now, the question is Putin willing to abandon his long-standing relationship with Israel in favor of building and strengthening closer ties with Iran and its proxies? Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said that Israel's bombardment of Gaza runs counter to international law and risks creating a catastrophe that could last decades. Lavrov's statements, which represent some of Moscow's harshest criticism of Israel, were made during an interview with the Belarusian state news agency Belta, which was subsequently released on Saturday. Now, Lavrov also further expressed that while condemning terrorism, he strongly disagreed with responding to terrorism by violating international humanitarian law norms, including this indiscriminate use of force in areas known to potentially have civilians and hostages. Now, this makes a lot of sense. You don't, on one side, you don't want to condemn terrorism altogether, but then go and completely obliterate and that part of the area as well, where you're going to have a lot of casualties of innocents. He also highlighted that attempting to eliminate Hamas, as Israel has vowed to, would result in the destruction of Gaza and the displacement of most of its civilian population, which we just spoke about. And he cautioned that such a scenario would obviously lead to a long-lasting catastrophe spanning many, many decades, if not centuries. All right. As the United Nations General Assembly called for an immediate humanitarian truce between Israel and Hamas on Friday, as the United Nations General Assembly called for an immediate humanitarian truce between Israel and Hamas militants, on Friday, Israeli warplanes continued their bombing of Hamas tunnels and underground bunkers in the northern Gaza Strip, expanding their ground and air assaults in their efforts to go after Hamas militants. Now, today, Hamas had pledged to confront Israeli attacks with full force. The Al-Qassam brigades, an arm wing of Hamas, said early on Saturday that its fighters were clashing with Israeli troops in Gaza and northeastern town of Beit Hanun and in central areas of Al Bureij. Now, you might have seen images in TV when Gaza went dark. Mobile phone providers claimed that their services, including mobile and landline phones, internet, had been cut by heavy bombardment. Power was also cut, meaning that very little is known about the exact details of what is going on and what is happening on the ground. Now, we'll try to get some updates as become available. In fact, there's news that Elon Musk has opened up Starlink to those providing aid in Gaza, which is upsetting. Which is upsetting Israel, but there's more to come on that. Now, the death toll in Gaza has reached more than 7,000 plus people, according to the Gaza's Ministry of Health. All right, what else is going on here? A Canadian-led effort to formally condemn Hamas for the deliberate cruelty of its deadly October 7th attacks on Israel went down to defeat Friday as the United Nations instead endorsed a call for a humanitarian pause in hostilities. The draft resolution introduced during the UN General Assembly emergency session focused on calling for a truce to facilitate aid delivery to the Gaza Strip and a safe evacuation of civilians. Now, it did not specifically mention Hamas, the attacks, or the tactics employed by the group, which is considered a terrorist organization by both Canada and the US, as well as many others. Canada's permanent UN envoy seeks to rectify that with an amendment that unequivocally rejects and condemns the attacks while demanding the immediate and unconditional safe release of all hostages. Now, this permanent UN envoy aims to address the issue by proposing an amendment that obviously is something that they understand is gonna be met with some challenge, some complexity. However, having said that, they do know that now Canada's permanent UN envoy seeks to rectify that with an amendment that unequivocally rejects and condemns the attacks while demanding the immediate and unconditional safe release of all hostages. Jordan's ambassador Mahmoud Hamoud criticized the amendment, characterizing it as an attempt to gloss over Israel's extensive and continuous airstrikes in the Gaza Strip, which many view as a potential prelude to a ground offensive. Now, we already know that the ground offensive is happening, or coming, it's happening, but chances of it stalling, not so much. Israel has already gone after, they've already started their bombardment and their ground offensive, air bombardment and ground offensive, which we've already alluded to. Canada asserts that they have a duty to specify two key aspects submitted in the draft resolution: the entity responsible for these events and their consequences, as well as the international brutality of the ongoing murders and hostage taking. Now, the proposed amendment fell short, which we already spoke about, of the required two-thirds majority in the General Assembly, with 88 members in favor and 55 against, and 23 that abstained. Nevertheless, the original resolution passed with a majority vote of 120 to 14. Canada was among the 45 nations that chose to abstain from the final vote after the amendment's failure, and Israel expressed doubts about the UN's commitment to preventing further atrocities. Israel is not happy with the UN, feeling that they're not actually openly calling out Hamas and for what they have done. Rather, they feel that they're being picked on for in what Israel's right, or in Israel's opinion, is self-defense. So a lot can be debated on that front. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau affirmed Canada's support for humanitarian pauses and to facilitate aid delivery to the Gaza Strip and the safe evacuation of civilians and foreign nationals. Furthermore, the federal government announced its commitment to matching public donations of up to $10 million for the humanitarian coalition Gaza Humanitarian Agency appeal between October 7th and November 12th. Now, the International Development Minister Ahmed Hussein stated that Canadians believe in providing assistance in the time of need. China's in the news. China's expressed their willingness and commitment towards strengthening their diplomatic and economic ties with Iran. No surprise there. Chinese Premier Li Qiang, during a meeting with Iran's first Vice President Mahmoud Mokhbar, expressed China's readiness to enhance communication and cooperation with Iran in various international forums, emphasizing the importance of true multilateralism. Now, he highlighted the enduring nature of China-Iran relations and the recent consensus reached between their leaders. Now, Li reiterated that China's support for Iran's sovereignty and opposition to external interference, emphasizing the need to implement their comprehensive cooperation plan, which is to enhance the Belt and Road cooperation and strengthen cultural and educational exchanges. Mokhbar and his part emphasized a strong partnership between Iran and China and their commitment to deeper relations, particularly in the Belt and Road cooperation. Now, both sides expressed their dedication to continuous development of Iran-China's relations with multilateral frameworks. Now, we know that Russia, Iran, and China are definitely working together to strengthen their bonds, their economic ties, their international trade and diplomatic ties, and it's starting to worry. It's starting to worry the Western countries and starting to worry NATO as well. North Korea is also in the mix, and North Korea said on Saturday it was a steadfast will of Pyongyang to expand its ties with Russia, criticizing a recent condemnation by the United States and its allies on Pyongyang's suspected arms deliveries to Russia as politicized and distorted. So, in other words, North Korea is calling out the U.S. for framing its willingness to strengthen its economic ties with Russia as a means to supply or to do arms trades with Russia, and Pyongyang is denying that and saying that no, that's being misconstrued and taken out of context. North Korean foreign minister denounced military cooperation between the U.S., South Korea, and Japan, and said that Pyongyang's relationship with Moscow will act as a powerful strategic element if security in the region is endangered. So, what do you think that means? As the U.S., South Korea, and Japan become closer and continue on with their military exercises, North Korea feels that it's a threat, and perhaps their relations with Russia and maybe its proxies like China and some other countries could potentially get involved in the event that things start to spiral out of control. Russia and North Korea have denied that arms are being transferred from the north for use in Russia's war against Ukraine. Now, this was always a concern from the U.S. and its allies, that this new relationship between North Korea and Russia could obviously just be a proxy front for the North Koreans to be able to supply Russia with some perhaps maybe much needed military assistance and equipment that would inadvertently be used in its war with Ukraine. And both Russia and North Korea are wholeheartedly denying that that could even potentially happen. North Korea and Russia pledged closer military cooperation when their leaders met in September, and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov met with the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in this month and actually discussed implementing the agreements reached at the summit. So there's been further conversations between Russia and North Korea since they last met in September. And from North Korea's perspective, they said it's a steadfast will and stand of the DPRK to comprehensively expand and develop their bilateral relations with the Russian Federation. And they also went on to say that their ties will reach a new higher phase through full implementation of their agreements. The DPRK also stands as the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Now, Kim Jong Un traveled to Russia last month aboard a very customized bullet train for a face to face meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, declaring bilateral ties with Moscow his country's number one priority. So, the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says that both Russia and North Korea relations are at a new strategic level. So they're pleased with one another. You remember when Kim Jong Un, the president of North Korea, traveled to Russia in a customized bullet train for his face-to-face meeting with Putin? I mean, that you can't make that stuff up. I mean, that's like something straight out of a movie. And it was around that time where the Western countries and allies started to fear that perhaps maybe North Korea is going to start supplying arms and military assistance to Russia. So on Friday, the United States said that arms shipments were already underway and that North Korea was delivering more than 1,000 containers of military equipment and munitions to Russia in recent weeks. Pyongyang was seeking a range of military assistance in return, including advanced technologies. Now, I already told you that North Korea has denounced this and claimed that the U.S.'s understanding or whatever the U.S. is saying is completely blown out of context and completely distorted. And Moscow has also denounced these allegations, insisting that Washington has no proof that weapons are being shipped. So what exactly are in those 1,000 containers? Is it a bunch of t-shirts and clothing? Some supplies? I mean, God knows. Anyways, sure we'll be talking more about that later. So lots going on. Lukashenko's also in the news, the president of Belarus. Apparently he's calling upon Hungary's president to maybe come to the table and or maybe bring both Russia and Ukraine to the table so that they can kind of hatch out their issues and perhaps maybe come to some kind of an agreement, as they both fear that the Ukraine-Russia conflict is kind of at a stalemate, right? Nonetheless, I think peace is the way. It would be sad to see more and more people continuing to lose their lives over these things that are really unnecessary. I mean, living in this day and age, with all the technology we have and the medicine, the advancement of technology, for us to continue to go to war with one another is just like, it just seems so archaic now. It doesn't even seem practical. But anyhow, we would hope it would be everyone's good intentions to just bring people to the table and let's figure this out, man. Let's maybe everybody just needs a Snickers bars. I don't know. Have you seen a commercial where everyone's like going to war and then somebody's like, "Hey, man, maybe you just need a Snickers bar." Maybe that's it. Maybe you're just hungry, dude. I don't know. But there's a lot of stuff going on, and we could talk here for hours and hours and hours about all the different issues that are happening. Meanwhile, while all this is going on, one of the U.S.'s largest aircraft carriers is in a state of it's close by. It's within vicinity. Let me put it this way, and I believe it's the Eisenhower, if I'm not mistaken. It's kind of slipping my mind, but there's a lot of things that could potentially come out of this conflict. Whatever's going on right now between Israel and Gaza, it doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon. And the longer this continues to drag itself out, the more and more people continue to lose their lives. There's a possibility that other groups and countries could potentially get embroiled into the conflict. There's talks of shelling going on the Lebanese border with Hezbollah. You know, members on Hezbollah have passed away. There's a lot of things going on, and it's causing a lot of uncertainty, and it's causing a lot of worry. It's kind of, yeah, causing a lot of worry with not only the countries that are embroiled in the conflict, but as well as NATO, and so it's going to be interesting to see. But you know what? Look, we're going to talk about it next time. I appreciate you guys spending time with me, so thank you for supporting the channel. And you know, I really appreciate you guys with your comments and supporting us. Look, we're going to continue to provide the news and whatever information that we can to the best of our ability. Sometimes the news is coming so fast that we can't even keep up. At the end of the day, all we can ask for is, if you like and hear what you see, that you give us a like and you share it, and that support, honestly, it would mean the world for us. It not only helps with the YouTube algorithm, but at the end of the day, it helps us understand that what we're doing is meaningful. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you in the next one.